Hey guys, and welcome to my first video on this channel. So basically in this series we're going to be talking about Mac OS. In general it'll be Mac OS Mojave, which is what I've got installed on my MacBook. But in saying that, if you do have Mac OS High Sierra or anything lower than that, that's still going to be fine. Basically, there's not very many changes that Apple has made to macOS over the years, but we'll go through them. So if you're just coming from Windows and you've never used a Mac before, or you just want to try and just go through the basic features and learn more about macOS, these videos are going to be great for you. Obviously, I can't fit everything into one video, so this will be separated into parts, or basically a series. In today's video we're going to be talking about just basic features and how to use those basic features on macOS Mojave. So first of all, we're going to start with system preferences. So if you're coming from Windows, it's basically the same as the settings or control panel that you have in Windows 10 or earlier. So we'll hop into that now. And yeah, so as you can see, it's basically like all your settings, like your control panel that you have on Windows. So we'll start with general. So in general, you can change your appearance of your operating system. So this is actually a new feature in Mac OS Mojave. So at the moment I've got the light theme, or you can have a dark theme. This is basically personal preference. There's not a better one. Personally, I like to use dark mode obviously at night, but I use my laptop mostly in the day, so light works for me better. You have your accent colors. So as you can see, each time I change, it actually changes these here. That's your accent color. So if I go purple, this is your accent color. Just basically the color that highlights your text in menus, etc. But again, this is personal preference. I prefer blue. You have your sidebar icon size. So that's basically this thing at the top here. So you can change that based on your personal preference as well. I just like to have mine at medium. And you can even hide the menu above as well. So if you're in an application, it can kind of just slide up and minimize just to give you that extra space on the screen. So here with scroll bars. So if you're coming from Windows, you know that the scroll bar is always on the side. In Mac OS, it's a lot different. So on Mac OS, it usually isn't there until you start scrolling on your mouse pad. So if you're using a MacBook Pro or a MacBook in general, you'll have you normally use two fingers to swipe and like scroll up and down. Same for like an iMac if you have a mouse. If you're coming from Windows, it's basically the same, but in Windows your scroll bar is usually always there. So you can obviously change that here. So I usually just have mine. It usually just appears when I start scrolling and disappears when I stop. You can have it show. You can have it so that it's always like that. It's always showing on the side here. So that's basically the same as like what Windows does. But again, this is all personal preference as well. And if you click into the scroll bar, so just say I want to go to this part of the page here, and I click the scroll bar, it'll take me to that part of the page. Or you can have it where it just jumps to the next page. So again, that's personal preference as well. You can obviously change your web browser, so your default web browser. So in Windows, obviously, Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer will be your default web browser. So here on a Mac, Safari is your default because obviously Mac or Apple makes Safari, so that's their default browser. But again, you can choose whichever you like. I just prefer to use Safari. It's just easier to use, and it's just there already for me, so I don't really have to muck around. But I do have Google Chrome. It's pretty useful as well. It's good to have both. So again, this is personal preference as well. You can choose if you want programs to ask. So just say you're in a Word document and you close the application and you forgot to save it, this can ask if you want the program to ask you, do you want to save this first? I have mine unticked, just personal preference again. When you're closing a window, it quits an app. So on a Mac, it's very different. So well, first of all, as you can see on a Mac, you've got the close button, the minimize or maximize, which is currently grayed out. On Windows, this is actually on the top right side. On a Mac, it's just on this side. If you are coming from a Windows, it will take you a little while to get used to that, but honestly, I got used to it within like a couple of days, and I'm fine now, so I have no problems with it. So on a Mac, when you exit a program, it usually doesn't fully quit the program, it actually just minimizes it over here. And to find out if a program is minimized, it usually has a little black dot there on the bottom of the screen. So that's usually what that means. So that's just saying, would you like to close the window when you press X, or would you just like to minimize it? I just like to have mine closed, because when I'm closing them, I want it to be closed. If I want to minimize it, then I'll just minimize it here. So that's just how Macs work. And again, that's personal preference as well. Recent items. So that will be... Where are we? Recent items. I'm not really too sure what that means. I'll get back to that one in another video as well. So we've got another option here, which is allow handoff between this Mac and your iCloud devices. So if you just say you're using Apple Pages, which is basically Apple's version of Microsoft Office, like Word, so this one here, just say you're typing a document and you grab your iPad out. You can actually continue doing that same work on your iPad. So it obviously uses your iCloud services to figure out like what device you're using, etc. Alright, so we'll go back. So you've got your desktop and screensaver, so that's pretty self-explanatory. So you've got your desktop. This is where you change the wallpaper. So you've got your desktop picture. So this is what comes on your Mac by default. So some nice pictures on here. And then you've got, this is actually a new feature in Mac OS Mojave. So you have dynamic desktop. So basically what that means is if you go with this wallpaper, it'll actually change based on the time of the day. So just say you're waking up in the morning, this wallpaper will look like the sun has just come out. Maybe later tonight when you're using your laptop, this wallpaper will actually turn dark. So that's what a dynamic desktop wallpaper is. The wallpaper changes depending on the time of the day. So that's a pretty cool feature to have there. And this feature is only in Mac OS Mojave. So if you don't have Mac OS Mojave, it won't appear here at the top. You can also have colors as your wallpaper, or you can choose. You can actually choose your own wallpapers. So from your folders that are on your Mac. You can also set screensavers. So here at the top, screensavers. So obviously, if you leave your laptop for, like, depending on how long you set this for. So just for example, I leave my Mac for a minute and don't touch it, and the mouse hasn't moved or anything, it'll automatically go to this screensaver that you choose. So that's pretty cool. We'll go back here. You've also got your dock. So your dock is this part on the bottom here where your applications are. So it's pretty similar to Windows. So in Windows it's a taskbar, but here in Mac we call it the dock. So you can actually change the size of your dock. So as you see, if I move this slider, just watch down the bottom, it'll change size. So as you can see, that changes the size of it. That's personal preference there as well. You can also position the dock wherever you like, so you can have it on the left, on the bottom, or the right. I prefer mine on the bottom, it looks a lot better for me. You can also choose the animation. So just say I minimize this here, it's like they call it a genie effect, so it kind of like slides in, like, and scales down like that. You can also change it to scale effect as well. I think genie effect looks better, but again, that's all personal preference there as well. We'll go back. The rest of the stuff is basically just things you don't really need to worry about too much. I can go over them in other videos. If you would like me to go over them in other videos, let me know in the comments below. We've got language and region. So basically this is your language and region preferences, so you can change your preferred languages. So it goes in a list. So at the top, English is my primary language, so I have that at the top. And Japanese is my second because I'm learning Japanese at the moment, so that makes sense for me. And Spanish is just there at the bottom there. My region is Australia, so just ensure that your region is set to your actual region. Everyone's will be different. The first day of the week is, well, in this case, it's a Sunday. You can change it to whatever you like. Your calendar will be Gregorian. That also depends on your region as well. You can set your time to be 24-hour time. So at the moment, I just prefer my time to be 12-hour time, just so that way it's easier for me to read. And temperature. So obviously, if you're living in America or Europe, you're going to be Fahrenheit. But for me, because I'm in Australia, Celsius. Alright, we'll go back. And we'll just finish off on this one here. So security and privacy. So basically it's the same as Windows. So you have, so when you install a program on a Windows computer, it always asks you, do you trust this publisher? And you always have the option to press yes or no. The same thing follows for a Mac. So when you do install something on a Mac, it actually asks you to enter a password. So your password that you use to log into the Mac. So it asks you, do you trust this publisher? Do you want to confirm the installation? And then you enter your password, and then it will install it. So obviously it asks you for permission first. So here I've got a login password has been set for this user. So yes, I do have a password to log into my Mac. The same thing as a Windows. If you're coming from Windows, you know that you can either enter a PIN, a password, or even if a fingerprint. If your laptop does have a fingerprint scanner on it. And obviously require password immediately after the sleep or screensaver begins. So if my screensaver does turn on and I kind of just like move my mouse pad or touch the space bar on the keyboard, it'll require me to enter a password immediately, which is what I like, because I like to have my laptop nice and secure in case it does get stolen. So here you can choose to you can have I require a password and now after the screensaver turns on, but I just prefer immediately, so that's personal preference there as well. In order for you to change these settings, you will have to press this lock. So you press that, and this is where you enter your password. So I'll just enter my password here. And unlocking that gives me access to changing these settings. So here it says allow apps downloaded from the App Store. So if you have that one ticked, it means that any app that you download from here, the App Store, will install without asking for your permission. Obviously, if you need to download something from the internet, so for example Google Chrome or maybe Adobe Photoshop or anything like that, you'll need to have this one ticked, because you obviously want to be able to install programs from other developers as well, not just from the App Store. And once you're happy with those changes, you can actually lock it, and that's it. That's done. You have File Vault. So File Vault basically secures your data on your disk by encrypting its content. I personally don't like to encrypt my data just because it can be difficult to decrypt it and can take ages to decrypt. So again, this is personal preference. If you want to turn that on, you'll have to click that lock again and turn it on from there. Firewall, I definitely recommend you have a firewall on. It's the same for Windows. It basically prevents unauthorized applications and programs from accepting incoming connections. So if you want to, if you're browsing the web and you want to ensure that it's safe, I recommend having the firewall on. If yours is off, just click that lock there to turn it back on, and click that lock there again to confirm the changes. So in the privacy section, you do have an option to allow certain programs to control your computer. So obviously that's giving access to your computer. I have never really touched any of these settings, so you probably don't need to worry about that too much. Yeah, so you're all good to leave that and how it is there, that's fine. Right, so in the next video, I'll keep going into further detail about the rest of this stuff. Again, thanks guys for watching this video. Please subscribe if you want to have more of these videos, and don't forget to turn your notifications on. I'll try and post a video at least once a week to get started, as this is my first video on the channel. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I try to shut you up, but all I get is